I think if it's the same thing that I'm thinking of. And of course, Beefcake is on the screen. Yamazaki, please help us. Yo, wait, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Go back. We're rewinding. I did not know he appeared! Sumimasen. He looked at me for a moment, his eyes narrowed in curiosity.
薬の補充も兼ねて休憩にしようか。君、ちょっと手伝ってくれるかね。
はい、of course. What luck! Nah, this was all planned in advance, I swear. Matsumoto sensei.
松本先生、雪村君。
はい、今度さ。
おお、早速会えたようだな。
はい、おかげさまで。
Huh? I was utterly lost. Matsumoto sensei laid a gentle hand on my shoulder.
私は君に会うためにここに来たんだよ。高堂さんの娘さんがここに身を寄せていると近藤さんが教えてくれたんだ。
I see.
高堂さんと松本先生が懇意にしていたことは俺も知っていたからな。何か高堂さんの手がかりになればと思い、松本先生が今日に戻ってすぐに連絡を取った。
The Shinsengumi had their own reasons for wanting my father found, but Matsumoto sensei's appearance was still cause for joy. After a moment, Kondo-san turned around and faced me directly.
その仲立ちをしてくれたのが実は伊庭くんだったんだ。
Ah, okay, that's how he's involved. Alright. Iba then appeared from behind the building as if he was summoned.
こんにちは。できればここにはもっと別の用事で来たかったんですけど。
He led us back inside the compounds in order to discuss the situation with the Furies. Hijikata-san stood behind, listening with intent.
高堂さんはこの新選組で羅刹を生み出す薬、落ち水の実験を行っていた。
Furies. His description matched the white-haired creatures I had seen on my first night in Kyo. Matsumoto sensei nodded, then turned to Iba, whose voice sounded oddly meek.
もともと羅刹の研究は幕府の手で秘密裏に進められてきました。幕臣の中でもごく一部のものしか知らされていない重要機密ではありますが、僕たち奥詰めの者は万が一に備えてその存在を知らされています。対処法を含めて。
Iba's expression turned sour as his sentence trailed off, as if he was reopening an old wound, and he turned his head to the side.
実験が始まった当初の羅刹はそれはもうひどいものでした。彼らと剣を交え犠牲になった者も数多くいます。その研究の一部を新選組で引き継いでいると聞いて確かめに来たのですが。
Iba looked in Hijikata-san's direction, waiting for him to see if he had anything to contribute. Hijikata gave a heavy sigh.
そこまで分かってんなら今さら隠し立てしても始まらねえか。俺たちが幕命で羅刹の研究をしてんのは本当だ。そうなった経緯については話すと長くなるんだが、ここに薬を持ち込んだのが高堂さんでな。
高堂さんが羅刹の研究を？
When my father's name was dropped, Eva immediately turned to face me. I gave a small nod. I didn't know anything about it either until I came here looking for him. Iba's eyes widened, and they looked frantic as he faced Matsumoto-sensei, who merely nodded. Then Iba, who seemed unsatisfied that everyone else was lukewarm to the news, faced Kondo-san and Hijikata-san.
近藤さん、トシさん、率直に聞かせてください。新選組は今後、羅刹をどうするつもりなんですか？
Hijikata-san's brows furrowed. Then he paced back and forth, caught in a pause as he attempted to gather the right words.
どうするもこうするもねえだろう。羅刹の研究は莫名だ。俺たちの一存でやめるわけにはいかねえよ。
Kondo-san's face scrunched and he kept silent, his eyes fixed on the floor in front of him. I assume this means Kondo-san shares the same feelings as Hijikata-san.
もしこのまま実験を続けて万一のことがあったらどうするつもりなんですか？ここには戦えない人もいるというのに。
As he cut himself off, Iba glanced in my direction with a look of concern. Neither Kondo-san or Hijikata-san answered, and they closed their eyes and crossed their arms in sync.
もし幕府の意向に逆らえないというのであれば、僕が直々に上役に掛け合っても構いません。
私も伊庭君に賛成だ。ありゃ人間が扱いきれるものじゃない。
Matsumoto-sensei's tone was stern, but Kondo-san and Hijikata-san were staring at the floor.
トシさん、
Iba became impatient.
俺もあの薬が危険な代物だってのはよくわかってるつもりだ。
それなら。
だがあいつらが戦力になってるのも事実だからな。それに
He cut himself off. Even when he looked frustrated, the structure of his face was quite handsome.
もし実験を取りやめちまったらもう羅刹になっちまってるやつはどうなる？
それは。
Iba couldn't come up with a solution on the spot, and he looked down with a sheepish expression. Then someone arrived and broke the silence. Is it who I think it is? Yes, it
答
is.
えづらいのであれば僭越ながら私の方からお答えしましょう。
Sanan. Sanan-san, are you feeling okay?
さすがに切り合いは無理ですが、少し話をするぐらいならどうにでもなりますよ。
And walk, apparently. Sanan-san joined our circle. Then he turned to face both Matsumoto-sensei and Iba.
もし落ち水が扱いきれぬ代物だということになれば、おそらくは処分されるでしょうね。羅刹となったこの私も含めて。
Ow.
なんですって？
Yeah, Iba, you missed a lot. Iba was shocked by Sanan-san's suggestion. He appeared out of breath, struggling to find words that were sympathetic to Sanan-san's position.
三男さん、なぜあなたがあの薬を？
Sanan-san simply stared back at him, stoic as ever. I could have sworn I saw a brief flash of crimson in Sanan-san's eyes as he began to smile wearily.
哀れまないでください、伊庭君。私はこうして羅刹となったことを喜んでいるのですよ。
Oh god.
喜んでいるですって。
はい。左腕を負傷し、剣客としては死んだも同然のこの私は、落ち水によって見事生き返ることができました。 あなたも剣客であれば片腕を失うこと、そして戦えず隊の役に立てぬことがどれだけ苦しいか想像できるでしょう。
It seemed as though Iba was unable to prove any of the Shinsengumi men wrong, and he was silent. He'd known Kondo-san, Hijikata-san, and the others from back in their Edo days, which meant that he knew Sanan-san then as well. To hear that one of his old friends had become a fury, I'm sure it caused him a great deal of pain, and he was confronted with a moral dilemma.
こうして忠告してくれた君や松本先生には申し訳ないと思うが、ここで実験を取りやめてしまうことは三男君を見殺しにするのと同じことなんだ。コードーさんを探し出すことができれば、三男君や羅刹となった皆を元の人間に戻す方法も見つかるかもしれない。
Sanan-san smiled at Kondo-san, but it seemed to me that he was wary of any optimism, as he winced at his mortality being mentioned in plain conversation.
私は人の身に戻りたいなどといった覚えはありませんがね。
The Shinsengumi were adamant about their reasons for continuing the research and experiments. This made it seem like an impossible task for either Matsumoto-sensei or Iba to convince them otherwise, as the stakes were close to the chest.
医者としちゃ複雑だがな。三男君や大使たちの命がかかってるとあっては実験を取りやめろとも言えんか。
早急にコーさんの行方を見つけ出すほかなさそうですね。
私は何かあった時のために薬を調合してみることにするよ。気休めにしかならんだろうが。
そんなことはありません。お二人の気遣いはありがたく受け取っておきます。
Although there were reservations about what's to come, the conversation settled kindly, at least. Oh no, the tea's become cold. I'll make a fresh pot right away. I stood up. I grabbed a tray with everyone's cups on it, and I went out into the hallway. Then I saw someone run off in a panicked state down the hall. That was the fucking Takeda. I squinted to get a peek, and it looked like... I ran after them, tray in hand, to get a better look. Mate! I turned the corner and I caught up to the hustling shadow. I knew it was him, and he stood there waiting.
一体何の用だ。血相を変えて追ってくるとは、よほどの用事なのか。
Well, I could almost feel the blood draining from my body as the pressure to answer overwhelmed me. I did my best to stay composed, and I stood up straight, ready to answer. Were you listening in on the conversation in Kondo-san's room from the hallway just now? Takeda snorted, deflecting the question, and he turned the question back on me.
幹部大使の私が局長の部屋の前を通りかかったとして、何か問題があるのか？
Well, no, but... As I stumbled for words, Takeda seemed smug as if he stumped me.
例えば、聞かれては困る話をしていたとか。
What should I do? Well, the answer is, call for someone. Takeda is technically a captain of the Shinsengumi, and I had no way of knowing how much, if anything, he heard in that room. If I answered his questions by giving out information that I wasn't entitled to give, then I would be in deep trouble. I have to brew some more tea, so if you'll please excuse me. I bowed, turning around to rush towards the kitchen.
待て。
Takeda snagged my shoulder with a tight grip. Ittai! Harase! I already told you I need to get somewhere!
逃げるつもりだな。そうはいかんぞ。話はまだ終わっていない。
I closed my eyes tightly, and in my head I saw... not Kondo-san no Hijikata-san for some reason. It was Iba instead. Help me! Iba! As I attempted to scream, Takeda covered my mouth with his coarse hand.
声を出すな。一体誰を呼ぼうとしていた？あの男、伊庭と言ったか？将軍奥詰めとかいう大層な位らしいが、あの男がなぜここに？局長や副長に余計なことを吹き込んででもいたのではあるまいな。
I was struggling under Takeda's grasp, and even though my mouth was still covered, I could shake.
余計なことね。話されるとまずいことでもあるんですか？
Surprised, Takeda let go of my mouth.
お茶組からなかなか戻らないので少し気になって来てみたんですが、あなたは確か武田さんでしたか？お久しぶりです。
Even though Iba was smiling, his eyes were intently focused on Takeda. He looked guarded. Takeda seethed with contempt, biting his lips. Iba gently guided me behind him protectively, and he whispered to me.
さっき僕の名を呼んでくれましたね。嬉しかったです。ありがとう。
Aww. Remembering that moment made my cheeks flare up. Why did I scream Iba's name instead of one of the other warriors?
我々は外部には明かせぬ大使同士の情報交換をしていたのだ。部外者は引っ込んでいろ。そもそも貴様、今日は一体何の用でこの屯所へやってきたのだ？
松本先生に同行させてもらったんです。大使の健康状態について話し合わなくてはならないとのことでしたので。
どこまで本当なのやら。
Takeda didn't appear to believe Iba for a second, but...
言いたいことがあるのなら近藤さんの前で尋ねてくださって構いませんよ。そうなると僕もあなたのことで近藤さんに話さなくてはならないことができてしまいます。
Iba and Takeda exchanged heated glances for a few moments. Then Takeda broke the stare, looking away in an irritable manner.
貴様などに言いたいことなどない。私はこれで失礼する。
Takeda huffed and walked away. Thank you so much for helping me, Iba.
どういたしまして。こういう時は遠慮なくお兄さんを頼ってください。子供の頃約束したでしょ。何があっても君のことは僕が守ってあげるって。
The memory of that time, now far removed, was hazy, but... I remember Hachiro making this promise to me as his slender hands clasped mine together. Who would have thought that we'd find each other once again, now that we've matured? After all this time, he kept his promise. Then I heard some footsteps creep behind us.
先ほどこちらから武田君が歩いてくるのを見かけましたが、君たちと話していたのですか？
Sanan-san. I wasn't sure how to describe the events that just transpired, but Sanan-san turned to look at Iba for an explanation anyway.
伊庭君、あなたと武田君は以前も何やら揉め事を起こしたそうですね。ほどほどにしておいた方がいいですよ。
Oh, no. The tea became cold. It wasn't Iba's fault. I tried explaining the situation, but Sanan-san cut me off.
武田君は少し前の私に似ています。これ以上追い詰めるべきではありません。
少し前の三男さんに？
Iba looked puzzled, but Sanan-san nodded.
彼は甲州流軍学を治めた人物として体内で非常に頼りにされていました。伊藤さんが入隊するまでは。
Ah, right, so that's where they went with this. I remember the mood during the time of Ito's first arrival. That's right. It was Ito's present that served as the straw that broke the camel's back for Sanan-san, which drove him to drink the water of life. Sanan-san smiled with clear self-derision.
彼もこの新選組の中に居場所を見出そうと必死なのですよ。私と同様にね。
だからといって弱い立場の者に当たり散らすような真似をして許されるはずがないでしょう。
まあ確かに己の立場を笠に着て威張り散らすあたりは小物以外の何者でもありませんが、窮鼠猫を噛むという言葉もありますからね。油断しないに越したことはありません。
Sanan-san followed his statement with a stoic gaze in Iba's direction.
あなたも気をつけた方がいい。小物だと侮っていると痛い目に遭うかもしれませんよ。
はい、肝に銘じておきます。
Sanan-san raised an eyebrow at Iba's response. Then he curtly bowed and turned around. He made a swift return for his room, looking over his shoulder as if to avoid being seen by others. Iba looked as if he had something more to say as we watched Sanan-san go. I wouldn't blame him. Sanan-san, who he'd known since the Edo days, had become a fury. I'm sure he feels the pain of loss in his own way, a way different than Kondo-san's or Hijikata-san's. After a silent pause, Iba looked at me.
あなたもなるべく武田さんには気をつけてください。決して二人きりにならないように。
I know.
何かあれば手紙で知らせてくださいね。どこにいても急いで駆けつけますから。
Thank you so much. I knew that I couldn't let my guard down, but in this moment, I felt so safe and relieved with him. After sharing a smile, Iba and I returned to the room. Both Kondo-san and Matsumoto-sensei seemed so wrapped up in the conversation about the physical exams, it was as if they didn't realize we had left the room.
そういえば先生、健康診断の方はどうでしたかな？
ああ、それなんだがな。頭を抱えたよ。
え、それは一体なぜ？
なぜも何も。怪我人や病人を合計したら全大使の3分の1近くになるじゃないか。
What?
なんとじゃないぞ近藤さん。あんたらは今まで何をやってたんだ。切り傷から渋り腹まで。この豚書は病の見本市だぞ。
面目ない。まさかそんなことになっていたとは。
まずは病室を用意してそこに病人を運び込んでくれ。それから頓症を清潔にしてもらわんと話にならん。
承知しました。すぐに取り掛かります。
So we were ordered to clean the entire compound. Matsumoto Sensei came the next day to inspect the cleanliness of the compounds. Ah, I see. We don't get that scene. It's not any of my business. Can we get there? Alright. The inside of my head was a swirling mess of questions and doubts, but the one thing that most concerned me was my father. What had become of my father? Did my father really betray the Shogun? I thought he was working for the Shogun. And how was Kazuma so familiar with my father? The more I thought about it, the more I realized just how little I actually knew.
まあ別に尊攘派って言っても全員が全員長州浪士みたいな奴らじゃねえしさ。そもそもあの風間ってやつが本当のことを言ってるとも限らねえだろ。もしかしたらお前の動揺を誘うために言ってるのかもしれねえし。
そうだな。裏を取らねえ情報を鵜呑みにするのは危険だぜ。
I suppose.
行動さん探しには観察型も動いている。いずれまた情報も入るだろう。
Thank you. I hadn't really expected any of them to be so nice to me. It was a pleasant surprise. The only reason they allowed me to stay was because I was my father's daughter. That hadn't changed. But... Oh, that was a Hiske moment.
とりあえず行動さんが生きてるってことが分かっただけでもよかったじゃねえか。なんか分かったら俺たちもすぐ教えるからさ。無理すんなよ。
Of course. Thank you. Their words, Hiske's especially, brightened my spirits a bit. From then on, Matsumoto-sensei visited the compound regularly to check up on the men of the Shinsengumi. Ever since Sanan-san had become the leader of the Furies, the group was named as the Fury Corps. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, was it really alright to continue researching the Furies? My heart was heavy with worry. Without him, the Shinsengumi would be nothing. We would cease to exist. If so, why?